just how well can the 2024 Hyundai Sonata carry a tune? It is so windy. I'm praying that this audio turns out okay. Also, we're trying a couple of things that are different in this video, so stick around. I'm Jay. Steph's not feeling quite all that well enough to be with me today, but she is here in spirit, and this is still Modern Motoring. Welcome to the review of the 2024 refreshed, not all new, although it seems all new, Hyundai Sonata. Now, if you're wondering why I'm here and not driving or in front of the vehicle, well, we're trying something new. I want to try something different, and that's framing the video with the things. Oh no, there's the door. I told you it was windy. Maybe I'll keep this part. We'll see. So it's important to note that before we get started, again, this is not an all-new Sonata, although it seems like it. And interestingly, there is no more hybrid for Canada for 2024. Hyundai Canada said there's not enough demand for it. For 2024, there are two trims. There's this, the Preferred, which is the base, which is pretty well decked out for a base. And there's the N-Line. I'm going to put my foot there to make sure the door doesn't close again. So I guess I am keeping that take from before. And it's interesting to note that the Camry for 2025, which is where we are now as far as their model year goes, is only hybrid. 2 out of the 3 Honda Accords offered are hybrid, and the Nissan Altima, well, nothing from Nissan comes in hybrid, and they only have their gasoline with all-wheel drive standard, so there's something there. But where does that leave the Sonata with only 2 trims, this and the N-Line, not a full N vehicle, just an N-Line? There's a bump in power, more on that later. I don't know if Hyundai made the right choice to go with having only gas, or if they should have gone with one hybrid offering for this and then keep the N-Line as their gasoline version. But again, we'll dig into that a little later on. Now, it's also very important to know that in the States, there is still a hybrid offering. There are 2 trims actually for hybrid and 2 trims for the gasoline. So let's dig into what Hyundai's done with the Sonata, what the changes are, how it drives, where it sits price-wise in the competition. The segment's shrinking. There is no more Legacy as of next year. There's no more Mazda 6. There's no more Fusion. There's no more K5. A couple of days ago, Volvo announced the end of the S60. I know Volvo's not a mainstream brand. They're a luxury brand, but sedans keep going. There's no more Malibu. There's no more Impala. So the sedans, just like the minivans, are shrinking in size, while the Altima, Accord, and Sonata we have here won't catch the Camry for top spot in the sedan market. There just might be enough here, the 2024 Hyundai Sonata, to push it really, really close to the Honda Accord, which is a complement for the Sonata. And maybe there's enough to leapfrog into second place and become a real powerhouse here. It's good to be out of the wind, even with the door open and me in the car. So let's talk about what's new with the 2024 Sonata on the outside. Gone is the catfish lights and the mouth up front. No more lights going along the hood. It is very streamlined now, and if you've seen the new Elantra, I've seen the new Kona, that's what we're looking at. Nice long thin lines as far as light goes that run parallel to the edge of the hood. You got your lights down below. Your turn signals are part of that daytime running light system. I like it. I think it's a really good look as far as keeping it consistent. Going around to the rear, lots of cues from the Ioniq 5 here. Lots of squares, lots of cool little patterns, and gone are the high angular design lines. And I think it's a nice streamlined look. And again, looks are very subjective. I think this is much better looking than the 2023. And a little bit of a quirky note, they dipped into the Genesis part bin because the side marker lights are now a thin line. Because sedans are in such low demand, Hyundai acknowledges that, and they've only given 4 paint options. You get an extra one if you opt up for the N-Line, but for the Preferred, which is what this is, there's only 4. Moving on to the inside, I have my perks, I have my quirks, and I certainly have my irks about it. So a big perk here is there is so much standard equipment. Again, the Preferred is one of only 2 trims. So you have a heated steering wheel, heated seats, cooled seats. You have a power passenger seat. You have memory seats. You have this big panoramic sunroof. As far as an IRC goes, the 6-speaker audio system just isn't all that great. Now, standard is a 12.3-inch infotainment system, and if you've been in any kind of what this is, it's really nicely laid out. It's easy to use, it's very responsive, and thankfully, there is now wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. On the Preferred trim, there is no wireless charging. You gotta bump up to the N-Line to get that. The digital instrument cluster is a little quirky. Well, it's a lot of quirky. So it follows the rest of Hyundai's design language, where it's one big piece split into two different panels. But Hyundai says it's a 4.2-inch TFT screen in the middle, which it is. But your tachometer and your speedometer are also digital, and you can't do much. You can change it to, I think, 3 colors in total: red, this bluey green, and I think blue, maybe one other color. At first glance, second glance, and third glance, it looks like the full 12.3-inch fully digital instrument cluster that the N-Line has. Gear selector is now a stock off the steering column, and that is not new for Hyundai. Gone are the buttons that were in that little center console. And speaking of the center console, it's opened up a lot of space, and I can see where the wireless charger would go. It's not here. Again, N-Line for that. And there are no physical buttons for your HVAC. It's all haptic. There are 2 dials as far as changing the temperature go, but not really a big fan of having to take my eyes down for a couple of seconds, find my temperature, and do my adjustments, where muscle memory would have me have an easier time if it were physical buttons. Leather seats come standard here, which is a pretty good move, and once we get into pricing, you'll see just how important that is, not for leather seats, but just the overall value proposition. Overall, the cabin itself is pretty spacious. Nothing's changed dimensionally with the Sonata for 2024. It just seems like everything else. I still have the same size trunk with no spare tire. You get a tire fill kit. Now, interestingly, in the States, only the hybrid gets a tire fill kit, where the gasoline models get a spare tire. Last touch on the inside is the new steering wheel and the 4 dots, which is H and Morse code. And I feel that's a good segue to go from the steering wheel to talk about the power. So it's a 2.5-liter 4-cylinder engine, 191 horsepower, 181 pound-feet of torque through an 8-speed automatic. Front-wheel drive comes standard, and for $2,000 extra, you can jump into the all-wheel drive option, which is the first time Hyundai's done this on the Sonata. If you're in Canada and you're in somewhere that gets a lot of snow and you need that extra little bit of traction to get you going in winter months, $2,000 is an absolutely reasonable price to ask for all-wheel drive. If you want or need something with more power and you still want a Sonata, go with the N-Line. Gets a turbocharged 2.5-liter 4-cylinder engine as opposed to the non-turbo here. 290 horsepower, 311 pound-feet of torque, again through an 8-speed automatic transmission. Now, the drawback there is you cannot get all-wheel drive on the N-Line. You can only get front-wheel drive, which is the way it comes. I've done some longer drives this week with the Sonata, and I'll say on the highway, it is wonderful. It's quiet, it is relatively smooth, very, very responsive. It is an absolutely terrific highway cruising vehicle. In the city, it's not too bad. I find at lower gears, it gets a little muddy as the transmission searches for where it should be versus where I want it to be. And getting up to speed and getting onto the highway, it works a little harder, and you hear it, again, shuffling through those, not quite 8 gears, because you're not gonna get on the highway from a standstill, but as it shuffles through, again, you feel it working a little harder. You'll still get on to the highway, no issues and all that, but expect your digital tachometer to run up to the 4s and 5s. Another irk I have with the Sonata is fuel consumption. Both the Preferred and N-Line run off a 60-liter fuel tank. For the front-wheel drive version of the Preferred, it's 8.2 liters per 100 kilometers combined. Tap into that $2,000 option for the all-wheel drive, and that balloons up to 8.8 liters per 100 kilometers. Just to give you a comparison, the Honda Accord gas version was only 1 trim, and it rings in at 7.3 liters per 100 kilometers, so 0.9 less than the front-wheel drive, and the Accord is front-wheel drive only. The Altima gas, it's a little high at 7.9, but that's still lower than the 8.2. If you opt for the SR trim of the Altima, that bumps up to 8.1. So between the Altima and between the Accord, Sonata comes in last. And I'm not including the Camry because the Camry is now hybrid only, and I may as well say the numbers. Between 4.9 and 5.3 liters per 100 kilometers. That's remarkable, and that's a hybrid system, but that's almost half of what the Sonata produces. The other 3 have CVTs, where this has a geared transmission, so it depends on what your needs are, what your wants are, what you like as far as your drive feel goes. And do you mind a CVT? and are okay with saving a bit of fuel, or do you like that geared transmission feel and don't mind spending a little more on gas? While my memory is pretty good most of the time, there are a lot of numbers to go through. So I just stopped the car because that is the safest and easiest way to get all of this information over to you. So let's start with pricing. This trim, preferred base model, is $32,599 as an MSRP. If you want the N line with a few little extra fun bits, like the larger engine with more power, the wireless charging, different look, different materials for your seats, that's going to run you $39,199 as far as your MSRP goes. Both are subject to a $19.25 destination delivery fee and your other dealer fees and whatnot. So, interestingly, I think that the Elantra is a key competitor here, and here's why. You can get the Elantra for $31,099, and that is the N-Line Ultimate. That is the top trim without going to the true N version of the Elantra. $1,775 as far as destination delivery goes, but that N-Line for the Elantra has 201 horsepower and 195 pound-feet of torque, which is more than what this has here in the preferred Sonata. So as far as a price difference goes, it's a little less, right? Again, $32,599 for this, $31,099 for your MSRP on the Elantra. Plus, the Elantra has a hybrid version. If the hybrid powertrain is important to you in your next vehicle and you really want a Hyundai, maybe the Elantra is what you're looking at. So it's only $200 more for the true Elantra N than it is for the top trim N-Line Sonata. So take from that what you will. There is a lot more power in the Elantra N versus the Sonata N-Line. Let's talk about competition that is not from the Hyundai family. The Accord Gas was only one trim, $37,500, which is almost $5,000 more than this preferred trim here, again at $32,599. The Altima Platinum, which is fairly well decked out and similar to this, $38,198 for an MSRP. If you want to go for the SR, that's a little lower at $34,698. Now, just as the comparison goes, because the Altima is all-wheel drive standard, if you go for the SR, which is the third out of fourth in their standard all-wheel drive, and you deck out this preferred with all-wheel drive, it's only a $99 difference on the MSRP. So I feel that's the closest cross shop, again, if all-wheel drive is something that's a non-negotiable for you. I'm not going to go too far into the Camry because it is a completely different vehicle. Just know that the base SE trim rings in at $34,300, which is on par with this, but this has got far more equipment that comes to standard than the base SE would. If you want everything the Camry has to offer, it's going to be $44,950 plus your destination and plus. And the same with all of this stuff, because I'm only talking at MSRP figures. I think there's enough here. I really do in the 2024 Sonata, specifically with that all-wheel drive option for only $2,000. So even if you tack that on to this, that's $32,599 for the MSRP, make that $34,599 for the MSRP. It is still, it's still right there with the Altima, and I know I think that Hyundai's done a better job on the design, very subjectively speaking. It's got these two large screens. It's got just a lot of more modern design cues. It feels better. It drives better. I find it to be quieter. And I would pick this over the Altima. I would pick this over the Accord. I love the Accord. It's a fantastic car. I own an Accord. Now it's a 2004 Accord, but I've test driven all three trims of the current generation Accord, and it's fared well. It's just that the Sonata fares better, even with a bit of lackluster power delivery, trying to get up to higher speeds quicker, and that RPM gauge just really spiking. The Sonata does it for me. So I feel there is enough here to put it in second place and push the Accord down to third, and the Altima sticks in fourth. I think I've gone over my self-imposed time limit, so I'm going to wrap the video up right now. Thank you so much for watching. Let us know what your thoughts are on the 2024 Sonata. Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Anything specific? Do you think that I'm right in putting it in second place and moving the Accord down to third? Thank you so much for watching. We really do appreciate the support, and feel free to subscribe if you like what you see, and feel free to tell somebody else about it, and we'd love to have you join our digital community. Steph usually does this, and she gets it done in one take, so I feel inspired by her, and I think I'm going to wrap it up and do my little closing before I get too far ahead of myself. The third time, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.